All right. Gaza War Day 266. I think it's fair to say there's no end in sight. Um, we used to once in a while report on ceasefire negotiations, but remember when we used to do that?
Yeah, with vigor.
We used to talk about how, despite the ceasefire negotiations, not to look for any ending to the war anytime soon. Now we don't have to do that because there are no ceasefire negotiations. John Elmer is here. You probably have noticed.
Hi, guys.
Um, the aid pier is gone. You mentioned the aid pier, the ups and downs of the aid pier on your show on Wednesday.
Yeah.
I did see something about how maybe it's gone forever this time. Did you see that report? I saw that report.
No, but yeah, it's just it's criminal. I mean, it's a criminal charade, as I said, and yeah, I don't know. It can't handle any kind of a storm, which means that it can't be in place for like many of the months of the year. There's not really like too much of a winter in Gaza, but there's a winter on the Mediterranean Sea.
Yeah.
And so, if any waves at all are getting in the way of this pier, it's just a
Yeah.
joke.
Um, the Israelis managed to find and disrupt a major Palestinian resistance planning document. I don't know if you've seen this planning document, but here it is for
Oh,
people. If,
yeah.
as you can see, it's a document that has resistance weapons clearly marked,
Mhm.
the uses of them, the sequence in which the resistance weapons are to be used. If it resembles a snakes and ladders game, that's because
Because it
it's a
is.
snakes and ladders game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So actually to be not to bubble burst or be like back in the day, but that's actually existed since like 2016, 2017, and it's amazing. If you look at the detail on it, you go down on the tank barrels, you go up on the tunnels, you skip ahead. Your best ladders is the Rantisi 160, which was
Here
at
it
the
is.
time their best rocket. So you can see it's being dated by that because they now have the IASH.
Ayash. Mhm.
Yeah, it's
Abu
just
Obeida here ordering you on. But the Israelis apparently seriously reported finding this as like some kind of find, and so
yeah.
that's why I couldn't help
They
but
all the I don't know what they think. What do they think when they release this propaganda that we're gonna think that that's awful and not like
but so many of them, I don't know. When I was there in '02, I remember this checkpoint, being at this checkpoint, and there was an older Israeli officer running the checkpoint. Ah, it must have been Columbia. And he was one of these guys who was kind of like, he knew what the International Solidarity Movement was. He knew about it. He knew what ISM was doing there. And he was very like patronizing, very like, oh yeah, look at you guys and your little nonviolent thing. Isn't that cute? Right. And I think he asked me like if I knew Arabic. And I said no. I hadn't even studied any Arabic at that time. And he was like, you're traveling in the Middle East and you don't know Arabic? And he was kind of mocking me. And I'm like, now the Israelis are posting the days of the week as if they're like their highest spokespeople are like, this was just some guy at a checkpoint who was
yeah.
mocking me for my lack of linguistic skill. And now they're publicly advertising the fact that they don't even know the days of the week in Arabic. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's true.
I don't know
That's
what
all
that
true.
means. I don't know what any of that means, but snakes and ladders. So the Israelis admitted 26 casualties in the past 24 hours, and
I don't
it's
know. Where did you see that?
I saw
Al
that a day
Jazeera?
ago. Yeah, I
Yeah.
saw that a day ago. So
I
I
don't know
don't
where Al
remember.
Jazeera is getting those numbers. I couldn't confirm those numbers.
You didn't see them admitting any such thing.
No, they didn't admit that many numbers. Al Jazeera's done that a couple times. I'm not sure where the information comes from. I'm not sure if they're taking it from the resistance reports and adding it up.
No, it
I mean,
says
it
that.
wouldn't surprise me at all if that was the number. I
Oh,
just
you
can't find
think
any
maybe they
confirmation
admitted?
of it.
Yeah, they're saying the Israelis admitted that. So
No, I didn't see that.
that's a bigger that's a bigger deal than just adding up what the resistance. I think, yeah. Anyway,
Right. So they're wounded. They're the Israelis have claimed since January 1st that they're going to report every morning on their casualties, and the injured number basically doesn't change. It's like almost seems like it goes down somehow.
healing, healing is a great practice.
Healing after you've been counted. I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what it's going to look like when we find out the truth about these casualties. I don't see in a society like Israel that it's going to be a permanent thing. That's why I think it's been like partly why it's been so fascinating is that there seems like there's a limit to this. Um, they have hospital records, they have doctors who are involved in these things, they have you know, spokespersons in each hospital that have been involved in the process. You can't keep these secrets. You know, they've asked families of soldiers that have been killed not to have public funerals. They basically sanction a certain number of public funerals as kind of a like release valve for the whole idea of commemorating their dead.
Mhm.
So I do see how they could lie in the short term, but yeah, I mean they have a standard of acknowledging their casualties over the last 75 years of their state. Um, that at some point,
They
yeah,
changed their
they
tune.
changed their tune for 76 for the 76. Well, they have Memorial Day, right? They have
Yeah.
Memorial Day. I forget what month. I don't remember time anymore, but it wasn't too long. It was like around the new year.
No,
Um, and they list every name. They like scroll it on the TV screen. It's like part of the ritual.
but I
And
don't
like
know if
it,
we did this on or off mic, John, but I remember talking to you just after October 7th and having this conversation where we were like, this is a first world country. They should know
yeah,
exactly who died.
yeah, and where?
They should know they should know their addresses. They
Yeah.
should know everything
They didn't
about
know
them.
how many people were in the settlement. They were saying they didn't know how people are missing. And they're still saying that. They're still saying they don't. They're saying people died on October 7th. They're still claiming deaths on
Yeah.
October 7th that they don't know. They don't have any drone footage of the guy out for a bike ride who disappeared near Kibbutz Berry. Like they have these, you know, this
Yeah.
entire mythology about how they know everything about every, you know, they
Yeah.
have drone footage, they have balloon footage, they have CCTV footage, and we know that's true because we've seen that
Yeah.
like hundreds of CCTV videos. We know they have traffic cameras on every,
Right.
yeah, so it's remarkable.
So
It's just
I guess
completely dismantled.
what this tells me though is that it is possible for them to lie about these things, and it is possible for them to cover up their casualties. So,
Oh yeah. And they
it's
are. There's no
yeah.
question about it. I show the videos every week. There's just no way. The dates don't match. There's huge gaps. It's not just a matter of them claiming their casualties. When you look on their casualty list, which they publish of the names of the published, allowed to be published, there's just huge gaps.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's just
Yeah.
not weeks that go by without killing soldiers. We see them
Yeah.
on video and we
Absolutely.
know, yeah,
Um, so I don't know if I want to give there's always these so much going on with the so-called support fronts and
yeah.
so many incredible things that they're doing that but at the end of the day, every single day is the Palestinian Resistance's day. So, we and I think the support fronts would always agree with that.
They'd want us to start that way. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, well, I mean, West Bank. Uh, you probably the Israelis have announced that they're annexing the West Bank. So no more Mr. Nice Guy in the West Bank, I
Yeah.
guess.
Yeah.
But also like Oslo's over, I guess.
I
I guess
guess.
they're
Yeah.
saying that. Now Hamas made a statement saying calling on Jordan, where they, the same way they kind of said that Israel occupying the Philadelphia corridor is an affront to Egypt. The annexation of the West Bank is an affront to Jordan, right?
Yeah.
Um, Egypt and Jordan are rather inured to being affronted, but they are being called upon to do something or say something or something. So Hamas made a statement specifically talking to Jordan. The PFLP, the People's Front for the Liberation of Palestine, or the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, that's the left-wing resistance group. They made a statement as well. I want to read it because one paragraph stood out for me. The PFLP said the resistance's escalation of its operations in the occupied West Bank and its focus on targeting settlement outposts represents the most effective response to the occupation's decisions and to the plans of the criminal Smotrich. It turns the settlers' lives into hell and makes their escape from this reality a matter of time. So,
So that would be the Gaza model. That was the
yeah,
second Intifada model in Gaza, was to harass the settlers and
yeah,
make it just make life suck, right?
yeah,
And just make it a constant to put constant pressure on and require constant resources to
yeah,
defend them, which is also the case in the West Bank because it's like relatively, especially compared to Gaza, a sprawling territory.
big, yeah,
Um, yeah, and just uh, remarkable resistance in the West Bank that we just never give enough attention to. I feel like, I always say it all the time, but any other time this would be an intifada. It's an armed struggle all over the North. Um, yeah, the operation in Jenin was like a
yeah.
multi-layered operation. So they hit the armored personnel carrier, um, and then got the guys to come out and deal with that personnel carrier. And they predicted the route of the rescue vehicle, and then they hit the rescue vehicle harder than they hit the original vehicle with an IED. So now we're not just seeing massive blasts, which with the what we had been talking about for months about how these bombs get bigger and bigger, and one of these days, but yeah, they're now using them um, in layered formations that just
Yeah,
yeah.
it really is starting to sound like Gaza when you read a field report from Jenin, especially Jenin, but not limited to Jenin, Kalkilia or um,
Tulkarm and
Tulkarm,
Tubas and
Tubas,
yeah,
yeah,
Balata Camp,
Nablus, yeah.
Nablus.
So that's not that's not going anywhere. And with the West, with that announcement that that's the plan, there's no there's no intention of the Israelis to stand down from what they're trying to do in the West Bank, which means that the resistance is only going to grow there as well.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
but I think from the Israeli perspective, like those Smotrich kind of guys, they're trying to take advantage of this moment, right? They're trying to take
yeah,
advantage of the eyes on Lebanon, eyes on Gaza, to grab in the West Bank again.
right. But the issue, yeah, the issue they face is not eyes or a lack of eyes. The issue they face is the resistance in those areas, and
Yeah,
that's getting stronger. It's not getting weaker.
yeah,
So Gaza, I mean, they were talking about an operation in Jenin that's unlike what we've seen before. They talked about 17 injured, maybe one of whom was killed in the Jenin ambush,
yeah. One for
probably.
sure killed.
Yeah. But Gaza, I mean, Shuja'iyya is another one of these places with a legendary name. Shuja'iyya is a neighborhood that where the 2014 war was arguably lost by Israel, was in the Gaza City neighborhood of Shuja'iyya. It's the way they used to go into Gaza City. They used to go via Shuja'iyya as a neighborhood, and they tried to avoid Shuja'iyya this time, didn't they? They
Oh,
they
they did. They
yeah,
did. Yeah, and that was one of the surprising things of the war, that they didn't actually even go in until like December. It seemed like before
yeah,
they even went in. Then they got hit really hard in Shuja'iyya. It's possible, especially when you add the Tufa battalion that's just next door to Shuja'iyya, that this invasion that started yesterday in Shuja'iyya and Tufa is against the strongest Qassam Brigade's formations. It's difficult to make an objective assessment of that, but there's no doubt that there's not a better formation. So there may be equal formations. And so they brought in the 98th Division, which is the division that rotated out of the Jabalia raid. They raided Jabalia camp, and the Jabalia camp raid ended because the IDF were due to rotate out their training battalion, and so they are training brigade, and they when they rotated out the training brigade, the other two brigades in the 98th division were like,
We're going
we're,
to.
we're gonna leave too. How about that? And so like there wasn't any resolution in the Jabalia camp operation. Even if you look at like enemy maps, they don't show all south of the south part of the refugee camp. Um, even with Israeli armored vehicle tracks in it. So they didn't even attempt. And then that operation was when they captured some sort of soldier, whoever that was. There's clearly somebody on video being dragged through the tunnels. There's 3 weapon systems captured in the tunnel, and we haven't heard anything about that since Abu Ubaidah said, like, you guys know who this is, and if you don't know who this is, then that's almost even more of a story. So what tell us what it is. Is this a real Israeli soldier, or do you guys have some kind of backup units, some kind of mercenary units, some kind of special forces that you're not counting they're dead? Um, so to reinvade with that degraded, exhausted 98th Division,
Coming off a loss, coming off
coming
of,
off a pretty brutal loss,
yeah,
um, and
somewhere,
then to
that's somewhere
push
else.
into the most difficult fighting area. And like 2014 war for sure began and ended in many ways. The ground war
Yeah,
definitely began and ended in Shuja'iyya, but Shuja'iyya goes back to the first Intifada. It goes back to the roots
yeah,
of like the idea of digging a tunnel, like a defensive tunnel. Like that started in Shuja'iyya. So, and we saw a video from Qassam from Rafah. Did you see that one where the guys hand dig a tunnel over what looks like couldn't be more than a couple days? So you can imagine a place like Shuja'iyya if they've been doing that for 40 years. It's just a significant fight, and it's not a significant. They're calling it a pinpoint raid, um, which is different language than they've used before. So I don't know if
there's
that means that that
a lot of
allows them.
coining, a lot of coining
Yeah,
of
there are a lot of
terms.
coining of terms for driving tanks into urban combat. But yeah, they started the operation with a massacre, right? Like they dropped leaflets, but they massacred people before they dropped leaflets. And that just panicked people, and people fled with basically what they had on their backs because after these sort of surprise operations, in a sense, of the last, like this is the new corridor and raid strategy,
Yeah,
that these raids happen so quickly, um, that it's basically just a terror war against civilians, right?
yeah,
Like they're not
yeah,
going to achieve anything militarily against the Shuja'iyya battalion. They don't have some special information that they got on the Shuja'iyya battalion. So the idea of just racing in and chasing out like maybe hundreds of thousands of people,
right.
many
Just
tens of thousands of people, like with all only what they could carry.
just
If
using
this
surprise tactics
Yeah,
on
I mean,
civilians as
surprise
if,
tactics on
yeah.
civilians. So the 3 places they raided are are Shifa Hospital,
Hmm.
and then Jabalia, where they got hammered and their soldier got shown on TV being dragged into a hole, and now into Shuja'iyya. Like in they went in like minutes, and so it's just a terror war against civilians, and
And then
that's what
what
these guys are willing
happens?
to sacrifice their soldiers to
And
do.
then what happens in Shuja'iyya is that they get ambushed in a rigged tunnel entrance, and an unexploded bomb from an F-16
Oh
is
yeah, I saw
exploded
that.
on them.
Israel Quds did that again.
So that's a big bomb. I mean,
Yeah, and
unexploded.
there's thousands more of those.
Yeah,
There's talk of 50,000 aerial munitions being dropped. I don't think we know the exact number. The Israelis claim 40,000 um, air
yeah,
raids, but the air raids can have multiple weapons deployed on them.
Yeah,
So
I saw 50,000
yeah, so
the other day.
50,000
I saw
with a dud
50,000
rate.
bombs.
They
Yeah.
don't admit the dud rate,
Mhm.
but the UN inspectors talk about like a realistically like as much as a 10% dud rate,
Um,
especially if you're kitting the bombs um, with the JDAM kits and the guidance kits, which they're only doing like less than half the time. But yeah, there's thousands of these.
yeah, what I've seen is 50,000 bombs and 79,000 tons of bombs. So,
Yeah, and all the what like the 155 shells, the 155 millimeter shells that they fire from their
mhm.
howitzers. Though there's a bunch of them that are GPSed and they could be jammed and downed without exploding as well. And they fired hundreds of thousands of those. And then you have 120 millimeter tank shells, which are smaller, but still massive. And yeah, there's just a lot of unexploded weapons. There's a lot of unexploded mines because they've been taking all these anti-tank mines to
Right,
demolish neighborhoods.
right.
And then Kassam just showed us in Rafa where they dug that hole, that they
Yeah,
dug a tunnel and then stacked up anti-tank mines
yeah.
in a tower.
A- And they chase these guys out of their positions sometimes. The Israelis will run from a position they're mining
Oh,
faster than they're,
absolutely. And
yeah,
yeah, they when they're under fire, if they
they'll just
have
run.
because they take enough mines to say like we're going to do 10 houses.
Yeah,
But then when they're under fire, they're not willing to walk to the sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth, 10th house. And so they
leave
technically
it.
leave them behind. But yeah, I don't think leaving I tweeted leaving behind and then I don't have the edit on my tweet, but I think captured is a better word than left
Yeah.
behind because they would use them if they weren't under fire
So,
because they don't take them home, right? Because they're dangerous to carry around. So there's
yeah,
actually a lot of these in probably in areas that haven't been discovered even yet.
absolutely. This was a major operation, though, that they suffered. This was a difficult incident. This unexploded, this F-16 bomb that was blown up on a rig tunnel entrance. And there's an unconfirmed report I saw on Resistance News Network that the unit was encircled and the Hannibal Directive was activated to prevent their capture. So there was occupation forces deployed heavy smoke and artillery shelling in Shuja'iyya moments ago to evacuate numerous dead and wounded Zionist soldiers. So they may have
So is that
done
the
it.
number that Al Jazeera are they taking it from that number? Yeah.
Could
So it
be.
could be. It could be based on helicopter landings or something like that.
Yeah. Well, there were helicopter landings in Shuja'iyya and in Rafah today. So
Yeah.
there was a difficult incident in Rafah too. So Rafah, they had another massacre in Al Mawasi. So they
Yeah.
did another tent massacre.
Yeah, they're
The
pushing all
Israelis
the way
did.
through the tent camp. They're up to Khan Yunis.
Yeah.
Just absolutely just savage.
Stunning depravity. But meanwhile, oh, sorry, we didn't finish Gaza City. So Tel El Hawa, I mentioned there was a TBG
Oh
thing
yeah, yeah. So
apparently.
that's against an Israeli base in the Nitzarim corridor that's
Oh,
getting hit. So that means that they're in a position, presumably, because I think they're saying it's southwest of
okay.
Tel El Hawa, which is sort of
I
the
see.
southern westmost part of Gaza City. Um,
That
So yeah,
makes
there was
sense.
some question. It was the 98th Division. There was some question that I had on the first day of like, which troops are they sending in to
Hmm.
Shuja'iyya? Is this the 99th Division that's in the Nitzarim corridor? Are they moving them up, or did they move troops in across the border from the east and they moved them in across the border from the east? It's the 99th Division that is stationed on basically on the other side of the border from Shuja'iyya. Really, they're like in the Nahul Oz. They're behind in the forest behind Nahul Oz. So,
Well,
anyways, yeah, the I guess we're gonna eventually get to Lebanon, but
no,
um,
we're not done with
okay,
Rafah.
let's
So
stay
Tal
with
El
it.
Sultan, sniper operation, Yassine
Oh
105. I'm
yeah,
sure you'll have plenty to break down on
yeah.
Wednesday. You mentioned the Red Arrow missile. So there was some discussion of the Red Arrow missile. on Resistance News that I saw. It has a 4 kilometer range,
It could have, yeah.
penetrates 1,200 millimeters of armor.
Yeah.
That's
I
what they're
think nine,
saying.
at least 900 is, I think would be fair to say.
And they also unveiled the Zilzal ground explosive, for which scenes will be released shortly. So that'll be more for you to do on Wednesday.
Yeah. And all these operations show command and control. They all show organization carried out over multiple days. Like this isn't guerrilla fighting. This is an
Yeah, it's
organized
hybrid. Yeah,
military. Yeah. Yeah. It's
absolutely.
um,
Yeah, I mean,
j-
you kind of put that out, I think, early on, even maybe maybe it was Resistance Reported, maybe it was on our channel here, but like you were talking about how, no, I think it was on EI. You were talking about how this is a conventional war. The guerrilla war would only even begin
mhm.
after Israel had a lot more success than they're having.
Yeah.
And
And
that's
you would
like,
see that. You would see those fighters.
yeah,
You'd know the difference. You'd tell the difference.
yeah,
And even still, like when they're using the anti-tank mines to blow up, to use a tunnel to blow up
mhm,
using anti-tank mines, there's still uh, Yasin 105s in the shot, all over the shot. It's not like they're using that weapon because they're running out of the other
yeah.
weapons. So even that part of the war is still it's still remarkable that they were able to arm themselves for this war that's so much longer than Israel themselves had
Mhm.
planned for.
And you were
Um,
showing those new wheeled vehicles.
yeah, being used in the city. We have with the Israelis are using their sort of lighter armored.
Mhm.
They're still pretty heavily armored, but they're wheeled vehicles. And those were the vehicles that were deployed on October 7th. They weren't supposed to be in service. And then now we've seen them. We've seen them around. We saw them on October 7th. We've seen them in the buffer zone. They were part of convoys that were hit. They were hit in when the Qassam hit the Jeep with the anti-tank weapon in Jabal or north of Beit Hanun. We saw the Aton wheeled armored vehicles in the convoy, and Qassam left them and hit the Jeeps. And so the videos last week that we saw, or earlier this week that we saw of those Aton armored vehicles, is the first time that we've seen them in the urban battle space, which is interesting because um, that must mean something that they haven't deployed those before. Um,
Yeah.
we just always keep looking for like what is the suggestion that they're running out of material or just even being degraded of their armor. Um, yeah, but the
Yeah.
wheeled vehicle in the videos that I showed on Wednesday, it looked like one of them had been hit twice because the wheel was flat, which is one of the benefits of these wheeled vehicles is that they can run on flat tires.
Right.
Um,
They don't
but
have to
yeah,
be dragged out of the
they don't have
theater,
to be dragged literally by multiple bulldozers it takes to drag to drag the
which we've
distance
seen footage of many, many
multiple, yeah,
times now.
yeah.
Okay, now we can do Lebanon. So I saw reports Sheba Farms, Kfar Sheba Hills, Sahel Battalion under attack Matola. On the other side, Berkat Risha, Shlomi, and the 411th Artillery Battalion headquarters in Jatun. So that's your normal 10 a day.
Yeah,
Um, but the Metula mayor, he said something interesting. He said, "Our leaders are number one in issuing threats in the Middle East with astonishing statements like we'll send them back to the Stone Age. But when it comes to actions, they create a security zone within Israel and leave 80,000 displaced people across the country.
I think that's an undercount too.
That's a way undercount." But
So
the
I
thing,
actually I actually featured that mayor on the Resistance Report
David,
on Wednesday.
David Azoulay or whatever his name
They
is.
didn't say what his name was on the
Yeah.
show, or I edited that part at least. I didn't. I
Hmm.
tried to show 60 minutes as little as possible,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
but um
Right.
yeah, just like that the mayor is, yeah, they think they've lost their community. They
Well,
think they've lost their community.
they're very funny because they have this idea. This is like the delusion of the Israeli. of the Israelis that they think that someone in Israel can press a button and make Hezbollah go away, and they're just not doing it because of some reason that they
Yeah.
can't figure out. They're just like, they've abandoned us. They've abandoned us.
Yeah. They
They're
have.
they're they're well,
They
they
have
have.
abandoned you.
What could they? How could they? What else
They
could they
did
do?
abandon you. They abandoned Metula. They have abandoned Metula. There's no other way to describe it. They have abandoned the Gaza envelope. There's no
Right.
other way to describe that.
But what
Uh,
could they do? What choice did they have? They're doing their darndest, John. They're doing their darndest.
well, there's no
Uh,
way. This is the thing about Lebanon that I watched your sit rep. I
yeah,
thought that was it was nice to see you back. Welcome back. I don't know if
yeah,
we said that already. Um,
yeah,
but yeah, you gave some good explanations for why you believe the war is happening sooner than later,
yeah,
even. And I just think that there's things that we need to see before that. Like
yeah.
we need to see all the troops pulling out of Gaza. They're not invading Bint Jbeil, the Hezbollah like command village, and in Shuja'iyya at the same time, and in Rafah at the same time. They have to pull those troops. They have to give up on their prisoners. Then they have to
No.
get a whole bunch of tanks put on the back of trucks and driven up to the border. They need to repopulate a village like Metula. Like you can't drive to Lebanon and skip the border villages. Like that's not how geography works. So if these mayors are saying their villages are abandoned, their villages have to become unabandoned, basically military positions, because you have to
Well,
amass your troops on the border before you can invade Lebanon.
I think they're gonna drive fast.
Well, that's what these ATONs are about. The ATONs, the wheeled armored
But
vehicles, don't need to go on the back of trucks. They can
that is
drive
what
on pavement.
yeah. That is what they did in 1970, whatever, when they invaded Lebanon, right? They drove fast and they just shot from their armored vehicles. They just
Yeah, that's what
fired
they're
their
doing in
machine
Rafah as
guns.
well.
Yeah.
They're doing that in Rafah as
They're
well, where they're
just speeding
advancing.
through. Yeah. They sped through and they just, and that's, I think that's what they're going to do. I don't think they're going to withdraw from, I mean, we'll see. We'll see. I don't think they're going to withdraw from Gaza. I don't think they're going to give their prisoners up. I think they're just going to try to do it all. I think they're going to try to do it all. I think they're going to try to do it all. I think they were planning some kind of amphibious thing from Cyprus. I think Nasrallah's speech probably disrupted that idea. I think they thought they could just kind of do some two-pronged thing from Cyprus, and Nasrallah was like, "Sure, we know, we know you're in Cyprus." So, I mean, yeah, I think you're right, but you're not wrong about um how insane the plan is.
Yeah.
I just we the only thing we disagree with is on is Israel's capacity to do things that are insane, and
Well, I
that's
found
just
that's why I found your sit rep compelling.
yeah.
I found it the way that you laid it out. It was interesting.
Because consider the flip side of the coin too. Imagine what they have to do if they don't. Imagine what they have to do to not attack Lebanon. If they to
All they have
not
to do is say that they won the war in Gaza by whatever dumb metric they want to tell their people, have a
yeah
prisoner exchange, and the
yeah
war's over. But the mayor of Metula that you're talking about, he's saying that a diplomatic solution is what will make people not come home.
right
Because they're saying
exactly
in the North that they want to see the destruction of the South
yeah
before they'll move back home.
yeah. So what you have to find, I know all they have to do is that, but all they have to do in Israel is find a political constituency of sufficient power that could get a sufficient consensus to make a deal with Hamas. That's what they have to do to not attack Lebanon. The
Yeah.
only way to stop
Yeah.
the attacks on the north is it's very clear. The Lebanon Hezbollah has been super clear. Yemen has been super clear. The
Yeah.
only way this is going to stop is through a deal in Gaza.
Yeah.
So that's what they have to do. They have to assemble a political constituency out of nowhere
That
and
doesn't exist. Yeah.
to make peace. So
Yeah. I mean,
that's
it
the
does
alternative.
exist. I guess they're trying to say that Eisenkot, which is just crazy, like
No,
the
but those
architect of
guys
the
have
Dahi
said
Doctrine.
like it like Gallant. It was a Gallant. No, not Gallant. The other guy.
Gantz.
Gantz said we can destroy Hezbollah in 24 hours or
Oh yeah,
something.
that's the same thing Dan Halutz
Yeah,
famously said before the 2006 war, and that was the end of his career.
yeah,
He said that they had won the war. They'd knocked out
yeah.
Hezbollah's rocket systems.
And he's saying now they can't do, so they all, when they're out of office, they all say it's impossible and can't be
Yeah,
done.
yeah,
When they're in power, they say we're trying to get into power. They say we can do it in minutes or hours or whatever.
yeah. And the thing that is missing, it is missing from the discourse, the political discourse, is that they just have to they just have to stop the Gaza war, and it can
Yeah,
stop these other wars.
yeah.
The political echelons and media that follows in North America are really leaving that critical part out of it, right? And being like, how
Well,
can you end a war on a country that just keeps firing rockets on you? Like if you were, if Niagara Falls was firing rockets at Buffalo, you
you
wouldn't, right?
you'd do what? You'd try to solve the problem one way or another. Maybe you'd
Yeah,
make a
you would.
deal. Who
Yeah, you'd
knows?
make a deal
Yeah.
that lets your people survive and gives your anyways. I'm not going to give Zionism any uh
Help.
ideas about how they should run their, but the lack of rationality, the lack
Yeah.
of survival instinct,
Yeah.
even for cynics like and veterans of this,
Yeah.
it's
No.
it's
So, and that takes us to Yemen because Yemen is just so. This was if it wasn't if we didn't have to give this the past 2 days to the Palestinian resistance, these would definitely days would definitely belong to Yemen. They unveiled a new ballistic missile, which they say is a hypersonic ballistic missile. Um, I don't. A true hypersonic missile can maneuver at that speed. I think Iran has them. But
yeah.
it could very well be that what Iran has, Yemen has.
Yeah, and the
But in any
definition of
case,
that isn't the most critical
yeah,
aspect, right? There's it's like to declare it hypersonic is kind of like declaring a famine. It's like there's a
right.
bunch of
It's
steps.
subjective. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So, but either way, they have a medium range, heavy ballistic missile that they're using as an anti-ship weapon, which is just
new, innovative.
and
Um,
devastating
and they also unveiled the
and
two
can reach to
fan.
the Mediterranean. Sorry,
They
but could
also unveiled the two fan boat. This thing carries 1.5 tons of explosives, and they were showing it's like a little speedboat. So that's totally devastating. And it's another one of these things. Like I remember a Yemen decades ago attack on an American Navy ship, and it was like a suicide attack.
yeah, the USS Cole.
It was a suicide attack. The people on the boat died,
Yeah,
and now they're drones.
yeah. Now they return to
Suicide.
their base safely.
Yeah, suicide attacks are not they don't do that anymore because they have the same AI and drone capabilities as the other side. So this whole asymmetric warfare is becoming more and more symmetric. Um,
Yeah.
you know?
And just the numbers, right? Like the numbers of soldiers in Yemen continues to rise. Their
Yeah,
capabilities continue to rise.
yeah,
The Palestinians now have 40,000 fighters who have fought in this war, survived, and carried out devastating attacks that
yeah,
the next time will be even better at doing.
yeah,
And this is the dynamic that the Israelis are like rotting and degraded
yeah,
and require like basically to replace their entire economy to fund this the cost of this war. And all of these other players around are increasing
Yeah.
their power.
Yeah. And
Which is what made sense to me when you said that this might be the time that like
yeah,
Zionists think like actually
that
now is the time because we're
they're
not.
running out of time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we this I think you even said it a few months ago. Like this might be the strongest Israel
As
that we've
ever
ever
going to
seen.
be. Yeah. And it's um the Yemenis also, you know, the aircraft carrier that's been there for months was the Eisenhower. The Eisenhower has left the scene for maintenance. Maintenance takes a while.
Yeah,
Maintenance
well,
on an
they kept
aircraft carrier.
extending that one. That one kept being extended beyond even like I know like the sailors were saying like this is a
Get us out of here.
yeah, well, this is a yeah, these extensions are they can't go on indefinitely
So the
for those
Roosevelt has
countries.
come though. It's been replaced by another aircraft carrier called the Roosevelt. At the Million Man March today, the chant was "Welcome to the other aircraft carrier."
I didn't see that.
And Malik Houthi, Abdul Malik Al Houthi said the same thing. He said the new aircraft carrier will be at risk with advanced missile capabilities that cannot be avoided or prevented. So,
Yeah, I don't know about that part, but yeah, it's tough to hit. Those aircraft carriers are built for
well, they
like
have the
basically
destroyers to
nuclear,
shoot down. Yeah, they
but
have the
also
things.
they're built to withstand like small nuclear attacks. But you can
Yeah, but
still
they can't
harass them.
sit there and get like a city that can take a nuclear attack doesn't like to take a series of missiles
No,
constantly hitting it. So it's not it's not something they
no, it's
can
not
do.
sustainable. It's not
Yeah.
a yeah. None of
So
this feels sustainable in a way that lacks rationality and
yeah.
I don't know. It just always comes back to those prisoners that if they were never going to negotiate over their prisoners, like
Yeah.
yeah,
They should have. Okay, so joint operations. This is another thing that we're seeing more of. Now, they announced it, I don't know, a week ago or more, that there was joint operations with the Iraqi resistance and Ansar Allah in Yemen, and now they're doing them every day. So they said they targeted Haifa a couple days ago with cruise missiles. They targeted an oil tanker in the Mediterranean in a joint operation, the Waller oil tanker. They Ansarallah also targeted a ship called the Delonix in the Red Sea with ballistic missiles, the Johannes Maersk in the Mediterranean with cruise missiles, and the Ionis in the Red Sea with drones. So they were very busy with their missiles, drones, cruise missiles, ballistic missiles, drones, and
at
the
least
Iraqi.
one of those got through. There's
Yeah.
footage of what appears to be, if not an interceptor, then one of those cruise missiles made it through. But yeah, I think that the Yemeni's reporting isn't quite as it's a bit more aspirational. The targets are aspirational rather than
Yeah,
like
I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. They're not destroying. They're not
they're not even hitting.
destroying. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not even hitting. They're just aiming at it, and but still, it doesn't. I mean, it took a lot of work. It took Hezbollah a lot of work to break
Exactly.
down that aerial defense array in the north.
Yeah.
Um, so these attacks are they're still something for sure. And the point of them also is that in an open war, if that's what Israel, I
Mhm.
just don't like an open war with country that has access to other countries, fighters who really want to fight.
Mhm.
Uh, I don't
Yeah, I
know.
mean, they have too many fighters. They have too many fighters. They won't like
Way too many fighters.
Hezbollah
It's
won't know what to do with three if 360,000 Yemeni fighters show up, Hezbollah absolutely won't know what to do with them.
no,
That's too
no.
many.
But that's for winning the war, right? So that's the whole thing
Yeah.
about the guerrilla part is that if you open a war, an
Yeah.
open war, then it doesn't even just say, okay, fine, you beat Hezbollah, like, which is never going to happen. Then you
No.
have 300,000 other fighters who are ready to pick up
Yeah.
a guerrilla warfare strategy against your country, Israel, that has 15,000 active duty combat soldiers. So, I mean, let's
15?
15,000. Yeah, David Petraeus wrote in Foreign Affairs about it. Yeah, by the time you like break down the 170,000, you split half as like supply. You take out all the Unit 8200 tech people. You take
I
out
heard they're
the Air
sending them to the
Force.
front lines. I
They're
heard
gonna
something
have
about,
to.
yeah,
They're gonna have to, because they send all of their conscript, like it's a conscription army, right? But there's many options for how to fill out that conscription, right?
yeah,
There's many jobs. Like you could work for Army Radio. You could be the photographer who goes and takes
social media,
these, yeah,
TikToks,
be the TikTok crew. You could be the person sitting in the hospital, making sure that doctors don't say how many people
right?
they cared
Censored,
for, which is this is the whole point, is that the doctors in the hospitals, they want to say that they're part of this national
yeah,
campaign as well. They want to say, I've healed this number of people
right.
who are wounded during the war, and they know that, and the administration files know that, and there's just all of these data points that you can't forever hide. That's what
Not
I think that's
forever.
interesting about the casualty thing. But yeah, I find the Lebanon thing uh,
Unfathomable.
yeah,
As I said to you
unfathomable.
on chat, I said your mind is clearly
Yeah,
repelled.
if my mind is repelled.
You're-
But I also just
That
think
too.
that yeah, that they're just hastening the end of this. But maybe this is the end of this. Maybe this is the end of Zionism. These genocide charges aren't going away. There's none of these ICJ, ICC things where they're going to say, oh, actually, in looking at all the evidence,
All they'll do is discredit the court. So then they'll just discredit their court forever, and they have to discard that institution forever. So that's the best thing that could happen for Israel is like they're part of a Western alliance that has no credibility at all and no soft power tools and no legal structure.
for what?
That's the best thing,
And
right?
it's not even for what. They could have got 175 of their prisoners back within a week. That's what it looks like. We didn't know that at the time. I think we
Yeah,
thought there was more soldiers.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, they could have got
yeah.
most of their people back right away.
They
Uh,
could have not killed so many of their people
yeah, but
while they
instead
were being captured.
yeah, they decided to just, yeah. I don't know if they decided actually, like there's not any decisions that are being made here. These are just backing into all of these things. Nobody's saying, there's no
No, but
leader in
they have
Israel
a
who's leading the way.
no,
They don't even
and
talk to each other, right? Like Gallant and the defense minister and Netanyahu haven't been able to be in the same room for months. They hang up on each other's calls. They have to have like on their aides calls. They have to have multiple people recording the conversations because they keep lying to each
there's
other.
no war cabinet. It's been
There's no
disbanded.
war cabinet. It's been disbanded.
That's law. There's supposed to be a war cabinet by Israeli law. Like they're operating outside of their law. The um they're drafting the Orthodox. The Orthodox are protesting. The parts of the army are saying they weren't going to serve unless the Orthodox are
Yeah, I mean,
drafted.
that's a damned if you do, damned if you don't for Israel. Like,
The
you don't
Orthodox
want
are
them.
saying they're not serving whether they're drafted or not.
Yeah, exactly. And if they do serve by being forced to being served, you don't want those people fighting in your army if they don't want to be fighting in your army.
Yeah.
And then you have on the other side, you just have tens of thousands of Palestinians who want to join the
Yeah.
Qassam brigades after this, want to join all the groups after this, all any of political any group, any political belief in Gaza has a group that you could look at and say that was a pretty heroic battle for those
Yeah.
groups. But Qassam, I mean, it's just like
They're leading the
the
whole thing.
ability to recruit far beyond any kind of losses that they have taken. And then the fact that there's so many surviving
Yeah.
fighters who carried out so many commanders, so many field commanders
Yeah.
that have carried out these operations that understand how they work after 20 years of secrecy that is clearly so tight that the Israelis don't have any information on anything after 9 months. So they already have the security architecture in place.
Yeah.
Now they have the skilled fighters. And now Israel has offered them up
Yeah.
like literally hundreds of thousands of
Training
children.
opportunities. Yeah.
Yeah, just children who think that those guys are heroes, who they thought in the Second Intifada were heroes as well, right? And that
Yeah.
was a recruitment thing. But this
The
is just like orders of magnitude.
Now the other thing that I'm looking for in the medium term is the Egypts, the Jordans, the Palestinian authorities that have gone against the resistance, not out of principle, but out of being unprincipled and opportunist, which means at some point, when it looks like the resistance is winning, the opportunist thing to do will be to switch sides.
Yeah, or be overthrown. Uh,
Yeah.
we haven't talked about that. I mean, that seems like a whole other show. The situation that Jordan has put themselves in
Yeah.
with this, like,
Cyprus, Jordan.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's a
Um,
lot of Palestinians in Jordan, and
yeah.
the Palestinian street in Jordan has been completely transformed into one that is not afraid anymore. And it's not something that you can just have some, jackbooted
Yeah.
like monarchy security guards quell. It's something that's in people's hearts, and you're never gonna take that out. Uh, it's
Yeah.
not a phase.
And
It's a
they don't
liberation of
and
their.
yeah. And they don't have to do that much. They don't have to do that much. They don't have to, like, if you look at a map of where Jordan is and where the West Bank is, you see they don't have to do that much to make a pretty big difference for what's happening militarily in the West Bank.
Yeah. The state of Israel with the North in question,
Yeah.
with Jordan in overthrowing its government, with the Gaza envelope empty, with hundreds of thousands of displaced children,
Yeah.
who see a heroic battle happening by their people who are inspired to. I don't even know how like recruiting is not even the right word for what
No.
it is, right? It's like almost like they're gonna have too many fighters,
And they're just hoping that they can address this by starving them to death,
or that
which
some aircraft carrier makes some difference to this war. Like,
yeah.
how many Marines do you think it would be necessary
Well,
to turn the
it's
tide?
the same problem. It's the same problem that Hezbollah would have if 300,000 Yemenis showed up. Where would you put them? Where are these Marines going to go? Are they going to go in the tunnel? Are they going to go in the tunnels? Like, where are they going to go? They're going to stand around. Like, I get that maybe they're not going to go in the windows like the Israelis do, or maybe they'll have better tactics around armored vehicles. But
But they're
you
not.
know,
They're not bringing their own armored vehicles. So
yeah.
I just the Americans aren't going to play any role that is
No,
going to
they
turn the
don't. They're
tide in some
not.
way.
There's no mystery. Like they're human beings
Yeah,
with Western weapon
yeah.
systems.
They're
There's
trained
nothing.
together. They're the
Yeah,
same people. They're.
yeah,
Uh, I mean, yeah. They're not. They're clearly better trained. Let's be frank about that. The
Yeah, there's
professional
something
American
about,
soldier is
yeah,
clearly a better
yeah,
soldier than the Israeli soldier. There's no question about that.
yeah.
But not like
They're not superheroes. It's not
no,
Captain America. It's not an army
no.
of what do you call them?
Yeah.
It's not the Avengers. It's not Tony Stark.
Yeah, you'd
No.
know better. Tony Stark is Ghostface to me for all you Wu-Tang people. Yeah,
All
they're
right.
losing the war on multiple fronts,
Yeah.
and there's a devastating human toll happening in Gaza. But we need to
It
stay on top of this because
yeah.
this is what losing looks like.
It just
This is
feels like the point of no return has been well past for Israel now. I mean, I just don't know. Like you always talk about the toothpaste. It's just it's not going back in the tube. It's like down the drain and at the sewage treatment plant. Like it's never you can't even find it to put it back in the
no, they're
tube.
just going to leave, right? The Israelis that who would be the people that could become, a decent state, like
Yeah.
they're going to leave.
Yeah.
They aren't going to be part of that because it's going to be a deeply fascist state for a period of
For the
time.
foreseeable future. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I mean, imagine social cohesion. Imagine,
No, when you're arresting your school teachers and
yeah,
the
you're arresting people who don't want to go and be drafted. You're arresting the people who insist on those people being drafted. You- yeah, yeah.
while leaving their people, right? They're
Well,
not
just and
even
yeah,
right now negotiating. There's not any reasonable description of negotiating that's going
no,
on the ceasefire talks, right?
no, just a complete abandonment of their prisoners. Yeah. All for the right to take Palestinian prisoners, for the
Yeah.
right to continue to torture. And those images are another thing, right? The torture that they're doing of the Palestinian prisoners, like the condition that the Palestinian prisoners are coming back from Zaytiman or
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever those.
And the condition of the Israeli soldiers who are doing that, right?
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
going to be very they're going to seamlessly integrate into a fascist state
yeah.
after the behaviors
I mean,
of
some of them are going to
Talk.
kill themselves. We've seen
A
some of
lot
these.
of them
Yeah,
are.
it's not,
No.
you can't turn yourself into that without consequence. Humans are not supposed to do any of this stuff. Human beings are not made to do this stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Watching, yeah, just watching this every day. It's still, I guess that I got, yeah, we can't process this,
no,
the like, and if you could, then there's probably something wrong with you,
yeah,
right?
yeah. And as a society, like that's multiplies. It doesn't just add up. It's it's like beyond beyond even what happens to an individual. And it's this giant social experiment. And
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think it's going well. All right, well, what do we say at the end? Hang in there, everybody.
Hang in there.
Because it's not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Um, but we'll see you in the next one. We might catch another one before your show, John. Wednesday. It's only Friday. It's gonna be a long weekend.
Yeah. 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 The battle in Shuja'iyya, all eyes on Shuja'iyya for sure.
Yeah.
And all eyes on Rafa.
Yeah. Helicopters will be picking people up from there for the next couple days.
Yeah. And not being targeted again.
Yeah.
Even in the field report, it said that our fighters watched the helicopters.
All right. See you on the
Okay.
next.
Good to have you back.
It's good to be back, John.